2, 3. Thank you, and God bless you.
So, hello, I'm very happy to be here with you. I'm a professor in infectious disease in France, and during 15 years I was the chairman of major commissions to help the different governments in case of infectious disease crisis, vaccination, and was the chairman of the French Vaccination Committee, and during several years I was the vice chairman of the European Vaccination Committee at the World Health Organization. Next slide, please. So, I will look at it here. At the very beginning of the COVID crisis, I saw that experts expressing dissenting opinions were subjected to pressure and even threats. And I experienced that myself, since in May 2020, I published with colleagues of my department our impressive success in prescribing hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin with very low mortality. After multiple threats to protect our younger colleagues, we were obliged to withdraw the preprint. And then, as a reward, of course, I was fired from my position of head of the department, which I occupied for 26 years. Next slide. So it appeared rapidly that fake data flourished in scientific journals. And these fake data were widely relayed by media, leading to disinformation of public health professionals, but also health professionals in general, but also the entire populations. And some publications, including in leading medical journals, turned out to be fraudulent. Next slide. And so that's why, with experts from different professional backgrounds, I created the Bon Sens Nonprofit Association. Bon Sens in French means common sense. It was in order to check the main publications, and if necessary, to react by counter-expertises. And we also launched legal actions, 60, I think, especially to support patients and people injured by vaccination. Next slide. So our first fight was about the Lancet Gate. You all know about this scandal, a major so-called major paper in the Lancet claiming that hydroxychloroquine was ineffective and dangerous. And Xavier Zalbert, a journalist but mainly scientist, is president of the Bon Sens Association. I'm the vice president, and he's a publication director of François newspaper. If you don't know, François was created by the French resistance during World War II. And now it's one of the major newspaper in opposition with mainstream media. And this journal was much attacked by the authorities. So Xavier was one of the first to interview the main author of the Lancet paper and denounce the scandal before retraction of the article. And afterwards, to gaining credibility, because if we are just shouting and saying, oh, it's double bullshit, we wanted to fight using publications in peer-reviewed journals. That's what we did. Next slide. So the first attack was because in November 2020, the recovery randomized trial was published in the New England Journal of Medicine. But in fact, the trial used voluntarily, I think, toxic overdoses of hydroxychloroquine, leading to the death of many patients in the trial. So we denounced this medical fault, and we published this response in the New England Journal of Medicine. Next slide, yes, thank you. In 2021, a meta-analysis was published by young and Swiss doctors, and they said that hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin was not effective, but in fact, we did a counter meta-analysis, and we saw serious methodological issues in the Violet study, and especially major publications showing the benefit and safety of hydroxychloroquine were not taken into account. So it's a kind of cherry picking. Next slide. So in October 2023, a Swedish study was published advocating the efficacy of COVID-19 vaccines. It was published in the British Medical Journal, but we denounced methodological errors. We wrote a rapid response, which was published in the BMJ. We wrote a second letter with further analysis of the data, asking for retraction. We had no answer, but I just learned 2 days ago that the British Medical Journal accept that we sent a new letter to answer to the answer of the authors. Next slide. In January 2024, so recently, was released a publication claiming that hydroxychloroquine was responsible for high mortality. Patients were from Belgium, France, Italy, Spain, Turkey, USA, and they say that hydroxychloroquine was responsible for nearly 17,000 deaths. But analyzes the data, we evidence lack of integrity, data miscalculation, results fabrication. We wrote a letter to the journal and asked for retraction, but we have no answer at the present time. And recently, now it's nearly published, we made independent analysis to confirm controversial results published by Professor Didier Raoult in Marseille. They showed at the very beginning of the crisis that hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin were very effective. They published a first preprint, but they were obliged to withdraw the paper to protect their medical team, which was harassed, and they wanted to throw these physicians out of the university and the hospital of Marseille. However, each patient file was certified by a bailiff, and the authors allowed public access to their data to be freely reanalyzed by other researchers. So that's why we analyze this database in accordance with Didier Raoult and his team. Next slide. So the 2 papers are accepted. They will be online in a few days. We made 2 articles in the same issue of the journal because it was a very long work. The first one confirming the efficacy of early treatment with hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin, and the second one confirming the lack of efficiency of vaccination. This database is more than 30,000 patients. It was strongly attacked by the French authorities, and Didier Raoult and his team are under strong attacks, including injustice, because of this publication. So we wanted to help him. So with Bon Sens, we had several publications. I won't go into them in detail, just to mention one, because it was important for me. We made a measure of the oxygen saturation in the blood of children obliged to wear a mask. They were obliged in France during 2 years, and this study showed that these poor children had psychological and physical problems due to the wearing a mask, and that a significant proportion of them had a lack of oxygen at the end of the day. So it was very criminal to take these measures against our children. Next. So to finish, a few words about the French authorities' fight against freedom. You know, France was a symbol of liberty, but now I hope that you will send us a new Statue of Liberty, but on the other side, you know. Because at the beginning of December, you know, so this guy, Emmanuel Macron, the president, he created the Presidential Council of Science in order to decide what is science or not. Very important question. And he pushed for a law project built to reinforce the combat against sectarian aberration, and an article named Article 4 is very dangerous. It threatens our democracy by introducing several offenses: provocation to abandon or refrain from therapeutic or prophylactic treatment following the current medical knowledge, or to recommend practices that do not conform to the medical consensus. You can go to jail, and if incentives are followed, you can go 3 years in jail. And this bill concerns prosecution of the perpetrators of these incitements when they are made through written or audiovisual press. That's a very strong censure. Next, thank you. So this law was voted by the National Assembly, the equivalent of the House of Representatives, in July. But the Liberticide points, the famous Article 4, were rejected by the Senate, condemned as a Conseil d'Etat, equivalent to the Supreme Court. But this article was reintroduced by the Law Commission of the National Assembly the 2nd of February. And in France, in the opposite of the United States, when the two chambers of the Congress disagree, the National Assembly predominates. Next. And with bon sens, we wrote to all deputies to warn them of the consequences of the law. So the 13th of February, it was voted, the National Assembly rejected Article 4. So we were shouting victory, but in fact, Macron and his accomplices, they waited a few hours, but the deputies went back to their towns by train or plane, and they, with the remaining deputies, they voted a new version, and it was finally voted. So for us, it was terrible. Fortunately, the final version is a little less dangerous, and it seems that whistleblowers would be not so much concerned as it was in the former version. So I think they are going so far in the attacks that they opened the eyes of many citizens. So I remain optimistic because there are more and more awakened people in the population. And as in 18th century, I would like that France and the United States of America continue the fight hand in hand for liberty. Thank you.